Pricing is the biggest leverage you have in your coaching business. If you charge too little, you're not going to make much. If you charge a lot, well, there's different ways of organizing that to attract better quality clients. And today I'm going to share with you 7 pricing mistakes I wish I would have avoided when I started my coaching business. All right, guys, welcome back. Gabriel Kim here, CEO and founder of Healthpreneur. And today I'm going to share with you what I believe are really, really important mistakes to avoid when it comes to pricing your coaching. So without any further ado, let me tell you why pricing is so important. If you think about charging whatever it is you charge, the single fastest and easiest thing you can do to change the profitability of your business is to simply charge more. If you charge $2,000 for a client and then you decide to charge $3,000 for a client, you effectively grow your your top line by 33%. And that difference all goes to the bottom line, assuming everything else is equal. So when we think of leverage points in your business, pricing is very, very, very powerful, and it's very simple. And quite honestly, there's no rhyme or reason. There's no scientific method for how to price accordingly. You simply ask yourself, how much do I believe I can charge for this? How much do I believe this transformation is worth? It doesn't matter what other people charge, and there's no supply and demand curves that are going to tell you. You simply pick a price and you get convicted behind that. And if you are sold on it, then you'll be able to sell other people on it as well. So with that said, let's talk about the 7 mistakes I've made, and hopefully you avoid these as well. So first one is this whole idea of trial months. So actually recently a client of ours was asking, this actually came about because a client was asking, hey Yuri, I've got a prospective client who was really all in after our call, and then spoke with her husband, and her husband was really hesitant about, investing this type of money. So she wanted to do a trial month first. And my advice to him was, she's either in or she's out. If she doesn't work with you, it's her loss, not yours. Because you as the coach, you watching this, you have the keys to the kingdom that your prospective clients want. If someone's dealing with a health issue they haven't been able to solve, they're not in a position where for them, if they don't work with you, it makes a bigger difference to them than it does for you. Right? If you make, $100,000 a year and you charge $2,000 for a client, if that one client says, I'm not going to work with you, that's it's 2% of your revenue. It's irrelevant, right? But for them, it's everything. So I'm not a huge fan of making concessions. I really, really strongly, I'm very, very adamant about making concessions. And I'll show you a couple examples in a second. But trial months are an example of a concession where, let's say the client is asking for it and you're like, okay, cool, let's see how it goes. And the premise behind all this is that when people don't pay, they don't pay attention and they're not committed. So when someone's on a trial month, they're literally looking for reasons this is not going to work more than the reasons they're looking for it to work. And in a coaching business, please understand that how you approach coaching and pricing is different than if you're just offering a done-for-you service or products. Because coaching involves the clients to show up and do the work. If the client comes in and they think they're calling the shots, you are fucked. And I'll give you ample examples in this video that show you, at least from my experience and our client's experience, that to be the fact. So trial months, I'm a huge advocate against them. You're in or you're out. I don't do trials, okay? Again, please understand there's a lot of stuff on the internet about, making these irresistible offers and getting people in before they pay. And if they get results, then they pay after. I totally understand that. And I've done pretty much all of it as I'm about to share with you. But if you want committed clients who are in it to win it, you cannot do that stuff. In a coaching business, ironically, the more irresistible the offer is, the worse the clients are. I've been at this for 20 years. And if you want to kind of play with that, you're more than welcome to, but just hopefully you don't make the same mistakes I do. Okay. The second pricing mistake, and this is actually a good segue from the trial month, was a couple of years ago, we decided to test something called a 7-day love it or leave it. And the thinking was the only way for someone to make an informed decision is by being on the inside. Just like you wouldn't buy a house without taking a tour through the house. So we said, okay, well, why don't we, for those people who are kind of on the fence, why don't we let them in the program for 7 days and we'll coach them as full clients. And, after that, we'll see what happens. And guess what happens? Well, what happened was 50% of them decided to continue. So percentage-wise, it's actually pretty good. Like I would take that bet all day long, but I didn't. And here's why. I was more concerned about the long tail of these clients. Okay, so 50% of those people said, yes, I'll continue. But here's the problem, is that it was the wrong energy for how we wanted to conduct our business. Because think of it this way. You're talking with a client, in our case, we're talking with a prospective client, and the person's like super hesitant, like they're super scared, they're super whatever. And we're basically saying, okay, cool, we'll do this. Like you can try it out for 7 days, and if you don't like it, you can leave. Now that's, again, 100% philosophical decision to make to see if you want to do this, right? We've actually recommended our clients try this as well if they want to. So I'm putting this out there as an option if you want to play with it for sure. But the thing is, when you've been in business for 20 years, like I have, you're not in the game appeasing people and being like, okay, I'll make it, like, just try it out for 7 days. And that's just me. Maybe that's my ego, whatever. But that's the philosophy of how we want to run our business. We don't want to be convincing people or bending over backwards to like give people a taste of what it's like. We have so much proof. It's like how much more proof do you need to see in order to get over your own self-doubt? Right? Like if you come in and work with us for 7 days, there's nothing you're going to experience in 7 days that's going to convince you that this is good or bad other than what you've already seen in mine. Either you like our stuff or you don't, period. On the inside, it's 1,000 times better, right? And if you don't have a little bit of faith in that or you can't trust me, that's your problem, right? Like I'm not going to let people live in the house for 7 days and then they're like, kicking their feet up, not doing anything. They're looking for all the reasons why it's not going to work. And most importantly, it's the wrong energy. It's a desperate energy of trying to get people in, at least the way I see it. And again, you could totally try this for yourself. It's totally cool. I know a lot of coaching businesses that have this. They'll do like a 7-day love it or leave it, 30-day love it or leave it. And that's totally fine. And quite honestly, it is a more irresistible offer. It is a way of reducing the risk for the potential client. I completely get that and I completely understand it. And there, you can, if you look at the math, it's like, well, if you reduce the risk by having something like this, you could potentially enroll more clients, even if half of them left after the period. And I'm like, I completely understand that. And it is 100% a valid argument, but it's not the energy that we want to move our business with, right? The longer you're in business, the less attractive your offer needs to be. When you're early stage business, you have to sometimes make more attractive offers. Like we talked about the trial month. The only exception to that is if you've never worked with a client. We actually have a process in our early stage coaching program. It's called the trade. So if you've never worked with a client, they're literally going to say, I will work with you for free for 30 days in exchange for a testimonial. That's the only time I'm ever making a concession is if you're just starting out, you've never worked with someone and you're just like, listen, I got to eat shit for a while. I got to earn my stripes and I need social proof more than I need money, because the more proof you build, the more money you'll make in the long term. That's the only exception to that, in this context. So the trial month, not a huge fan other than that one exception. The 7-day love it or leave it, we decided to kill it about, 2 months after using it. And that was purely a philosophical decision based on how we wanted to run enrollments for our business. Okay, the third pricing mistake was actually running a scholarship program. And I've seen a number of people in the coaching space do this. I don't know what things look like on the back ends of their scholarship programs, but I'll show you what happened with ours. So a couple years ago, we ran a scholarship program and the winner basically got free access for a year to HBA. So that's, a sizable investment that this individual didn't have to pay. So we had a couple dozen people apply. We chose one winner based on submission videos, all that kind of stuff. And then the person was admitted to the program. They didn't pay anything. And do you want to know what happened to that person? No, I'm asking you, I'm wondering if you know what happened to that person, because I have no idea. They did nothing. They didn't show up. They got no results. And this was once again confirmation of the fact that when you don't pay, you do not pay attention. And recently, one of our team members brought this up in our Slack channel. It's like, hey, what if we ran a scholarship contest for HBA? I was like, hey, love the idea. I just want to remind you that we did this a couple years ago, and here's what happened. Therefore, we will never do it again. As I'm sharing this, please also remember that the pricing is 100% a philosophical decision. How you decide to do enrollments is up to you. Our quote unquote sales reps are not sales reps, they're admissions advisors, right? If we're having a conversation of working together, it's an admission. Like, it's like going to school. You talk to admissions. That's the way we do things here, because we've recognized that our best clients value education, they value skill development very much like they did when they went through school. And they say, like, listen, HBA is way more effective and a way better use of my money than an MBA. And so we started to recognize this correlation between what we're doing and education. So we decided to take the kind of admissions approach as opposed to like enrollments, approach. That's for us. That's our business, right? Yours can be, whatever you want it to be. So with the scholarship, yeah, like it lends itself well to kind of this admissions process. But, again, like it's a little bit different than if you're in school, because if you're in school, you're admitted to school. And I don't know, to be honest, what the success rate is of people on scholarships versus not scholarships in terms of, if they go through their full course load, if they flunk out, etc. But one thing that I remember seeing a little while ago was, and I can't remember the exact study, but they found that those students whose parents covered their tuition had a lower GPA than kids who worked their ass off to make the money to pay for their own tuition. And it's just like, when I say this, you're probably like, duh, that makes a lot of sense. But I want to ask you, like, think of the different areas in life where you're enabling people. For instance, like with my kids, I don't buy them anything. They've had a very blessed life up until now. They've flown business class almost all the trips they've been on, but now our older ones are in their early teenage years. They're flying in the back of the plane. I don't care. They want to upgrade, they're paying for it themselves. Like, I'm not buying them a car. I'm not buying them clothing. I'm not buying them anything, right? I will buy them the occasional thing to help them with their own skill development. So if they want to learn about video editing, I've purchased some programs to help them with that, because I see the value, at least, initially, on helping them build those skills. It's all philosophical. That's what I'm sharing with you here. Like, whether it's parenting or if you decide to cover everything for your kids or whatever, it's the same type of philosophy is how we decide to run our business. If you want to make concessions and bend over backwards to bring clients in, don't be surprised when those very same clients walk all over you, because you train people how to treat you. And if you don't have boundaries, you're going to have issues. Okay, the fourth pricing mistake that we've made is weekly pricing. So if you look at like a year-long program, there's 12 months, right? So if you have 12 billing cycles, there's 12 payments. But if you were to break those up into 52 payments, you actually get a little bit more cash. And the reason for that is because 52 weeks gives you an additional week of billing, I believe, or actually ends up being like a whole other month compared to just 12 months. I can't remember exactly what the math is on that. But basically, some companies are like, hey, we moved to weekly billing because it's still a year-long program, but the client actually pays us more based on the cadence of the billing cycle. And I'm like, well, that seems a little bit sneaky to begin with, just that whole thinking around it. But here's the thing that we recognized. Two things. Actually, the research shows this. So when you have any kind of billing, there's this thing called the look-back period. So when you get a charge on your credit card, and let's say it's $1,000 on a monthly basis, you look back on that charge every single time and you're like, did I get $1,000 or more worth of value? Am I like, is the juice worth the squeeze? That's why, for instance, like when I'm paying for the insurance on my McLarens and they're sitting in a garage for the entire winter, I'm like, why am I paying so much in insurance on cars I'm not even driving? Right? So like that look back period is like, what am I doing here? Versus if I'm driving them in the summer, it's a no-brainer. I don't even look at it. So the look back here is really important, because every single time you're charging your clients, they're looking at their credit card statements and they're asking themselves, is it worth it? So here's the problem with weekly billing. Weekly billing, although technically two things potentially are good, is that number one, you might get more payments over the length of the contract, but also it allows the client to make smaller payments. So the thinking is, if you charge $1,000 a month, well, it'd be less perceived for the clients if it was $250 a week, right? It's a little bit of a lower like dollar amount in terms of what you see, and it's weekly. So, okay, cool, let's give that a shot, right? Maybe there's less barrier to entry. But the problem is that because they're being billed weekly, what happens is they're constantly being reinforced that they're getting charged. And you'll actually have, and statistically, you'll actually have higher refund rates and higher cancellation rates on weekly billing than you will for monthly. And that's something that we have seen. That's something that the research has also shown. So weekly pricing, I would probably, in the context of the coaching program, never do again, just because of the, of what I shared with you here. So I'm not a huge fan of it. We don't do it. And if someone came to us and said, hey, like, can you break these payments up to, whatever, it's just not going to happen. On that note, and talking with concessions, there have been 4 moments in the lifetime of Healthpreneur where we have made concessions to clients' requests. Hey, I don't want to do this. Can we break up the payments like this? In 4 occasions, we actually decided to do that. And all 4 times, the clients were a nightmare. And two of the occasions, I actually personally kicked the client out of the program. I'm telling you guys, like, when you start to bend over backwards for people, you've lost all authority and power in the relationship. And I'm not saying dictatorial power, but when the client feels they have the upper hand, and they might because they're the one who has the money paying you, but the reality is you have the solution they're looking for. So it's like, what's more important, the solution to them or the money to you? The answer is the solution to them. It should be. Okay, 5th pricing mistake. Again, in the context of a coaching program, equal monthly payments. Now, this I would say is probably more applicable if you're on a longer term program. So in our case, we have with HBA, at least at the 12-month program. If you have a 12-week program, like 3 months, it may not be the same as what I'm about to share with you here. So again, what we noticed was way back in the day when we started to evolve HBA and it became a 12-month program instead of like a 2-day live workshop, we said, okay, well, it's X number of dollars, or we'll just break it up into even monthly payments. Okay. So let's just, for the sake of example, we'll say $1,000 a month. And once again, doing a post-mortem every year, we're like, so early exits, cancellations, people who flake out, the troubled clients. They were usually on these types of payment plans. And I was like, well, what if we just collected more money up front? Because we realized that our best clients very often, not all the time, but very often were like paying fulls. So we're like, okay, well, what if we moved away from equal monthly billing to collecting more money up front and then breaking out the difference over time? And that's what we did a couple years ago. And it's probably one of the best things we ever did for the business. Now, again, if you have a smaller term 3-month program, I don't necessarily know that you have to do this, but when you're collecting contract over 12 months, this becomes really important. So again, I'll just use the example of $1,000 per month for a $12,000 program as an example here. So it's $12,000 over the year, $1,000 equal payments. You want to collect as much of that as possible, because if you don't collect the full contract value, you're essentially not earning $12,000 per client. Maybe it's $9,000 when you average all the clients out. So what we did was we said, okay, well, let's collect more upfront for 2 reasons. Number one, it got the client more committed, and if they couldn't afford it, guess what? They couldn't work with us. And this is kind of at the time in our journey where we decided to make some really, really hard decisions about who we were saying no to. So if someone couldn't come up with the initial lump sum at the start, and maybe it was like $5K or whatever it was, then they simply weren't coming into the program, because if previously they could only put down if they could do the $1K per month, there'd be issues down the road. So we're like, let's just avoid that by having a higher lump sum up front. And so we changed our pricing model to, it could be pay in full, or we had a lump sum up front. And then it was whatever the difference was broken up over the remaining 11 months. So let's say that it was $5K down, and then the remaining payments were like 11 payments of $500. I don't even know if the math works out to be like on that, but something like that. So you had a higher buy-in on the front end, which means the client's more committed financially, which means, guess what? If they're more committed energetically, the more you pay attention, right? When you invest more, you're more invested. So it's much more beneficial with that. And even then, even still, we have a couple different options with that. Right now, we have 2 options with that in addition to pay in full. And even to this day, when we look at the clients who have the biggest challenges in the process of working with us, almost all of them start with the lowest amount down, okay? Even though we require a certain lump sum at the start. And so again, I'm saying, like, usually when people pay the least, they create the biggest problems, and they're just, it is what it is, okay? So that's what we moved to. The other cool thing about this, and this is very important if you're running ads, is that collecting more cash up front helps you liquidate ad spend faster. So there's a reason that we've been ROI positive on our ads for about 8 years in a row, like every single month, is that we collect more cash up front. If we only collected $1,000 up front versus $5,000, as an example, we collect 5 times more cash in that example, right? 5,000 versus 1,000. That means we can cover the ad spend more effectively and keep reinvesting into our marketing. So that's why we moved away from equal monthly payments to a bigger lump sum down and then break the rest up over the coming 11 months. Now, again, I'm not saying you have to do this for your program if it's just shorter term. I'm just sharing what we have done and what we noticed as a result of that. Okay, number 6, not so much of a pricing thing, but kind of. So early on in the days, we were transitioning HBA, which is our main coaching program, Health Business Accelerator. It was a 2-day live workshop. I'm like, yeah, I think people need a bit more support. So we moved it to a 6-week online program. And then in that process, we moved it to a 6-month program about a year later. And then I had some kind of rush of blood to the head, and I told everyone they could have lifetime access. Wow, that was a major mistake. So guess what happens when you give people lifetime access to something? Do they do anything with it? The answer is no. And so I started to realize, because I could see we were using Kajabi at the time, and I could see people who had finished the initial 6 months, but they had lifetime access to the curriculum. And I looked in Kajabi at the last time they logged in, and it was like months previously. I'm like, they're not even using it. So I started looking at all the names. I'm like, what's the point of even having this? And so I made the decision to kill it. I said, I'm going to take away lifetime access from everyone who has lifetime access. And that was fun. That was fun to deal with the backlash. So here's the thing. There was maybe, I don't even know how many people were on it, quite a few. I took the lifetime access away and I said, listen, I know that we said this, but no one's using it. And therefore, we're going to give you an additional 2 months or whatever the time frame was in good faith. But the reality is if you're not using it, then you don't need to be here. And we're here to help you get results. If you're not even using it, you can't get results. So that's just the way it's going to be. And I had some people that are like, I understand. But a lot of people were like, fuck you. And like, it's just so funny when you take stuff away from people, especially when they don't even, they're not even using it, but they feel that they have it. It's like theirs. It's like, no, it's not. You're not doing it. Anyways, it was a hard decision to make, but it was the right thing to do for the business. And then I learned a very, very important lesson there, which is when you promise stuff on the front end, like expectations can never, ever, ever be reset on the inside. Now that's a very strong statement, but what I'm saying is like, if you tell someone on the front end, oh yeah, you get lifetime access, and then they come in and have an onboarding call, and then the person they're doing the onboarding call with says, oh yeah, you've got 6 months access. They're like, what are you talking about? I was told lifetime. Like, be very, very cautious of the promises you make on the front end, because it's very hard, almost close to impossible to renege on those on the inside. So for me, hopefully you're getting this from this video, I will usually negate a very attractive, irresistible, too good to be true type of offer to make a lot of short-term cash for a longer-term play. So basically I'm saying, if you want to work with us, I'm not going to make you any kind of magical promises. Like obviously there's certain guarantees that we have based on stuff we deliver, but there's a lot of nonsense out in the coaching world. And I think a lot of it stems from these ridiculous promises that I think people use as a marketing gimmick just to get people in. And a lot of times they can't deliver on that. I would rather say like, this is going to be the hardest thing you ever do. You probably don't have what it takes to win. And please tell me why you'll be our next success story. Like if we actually have a conversation, those are the questions that you'll be asked. Not like, oh my God, like you could totally crush this and we guarantee you'll get 5 million clients by tomorrow. You'll never hear that come out of our mouths. Instead, it's what I just mentioned. It's like, it's going to be hard. Most people don't win because they don't have what it takes. Why are you different? Why do you think you'll be our next success story? How do I know it's going to work, Yuri? I mean, I don't know. You tell me. I mean, we have the track record. You don't. So I'm just being honest. That's the conversation we have. And I know that kills some sales, but I don't give a shit because I don't want those people coming in the first place. I want people coming in, very much like the Marines say, if you want the most, make it easy. If you want the best, make it hard. And I would strongly encourage you to consider this for your clients. If you're enrolling people who are flaking out, not committing, not doing the work, Stop making it so easy for them. Stop telling them you know they're going to crush it. You don't know shit. If this person has failed repeatedly over time, every single thing that they've done, why all of a sudden are things going to be different with you? Ask them the question. Failure leaves clues, and so does success. So I'm sharing this with you because the whole conversation we're having here is around pricing, but it really is around philosophy of how you want to enroll people into our coaching program. So lifetime access, no bueno. The less time people have, the more work they'll do. Parkinson's law, right? Number 7 is if you offer one-on-one, is one-on-one pricing that cannibalizes your actual group coaching program. So when a lot of practitioners come to work with us, they're typically already doing one-on-one and they want to move to group in some cases. So let's say they're charging $3,000 for their group coaching program, and it's like, cool. So how much are you charging for one-on-one? And they're like, $250. So I'm like, why would someone pay you $3,000 then? Because in their head, especially if your deliverables in your group coaching program are like 12 one-on-one sessions, why would they pay you a lump sum of $3,000 when they could just go session by session? So number one mistake is never, ever itemize how many one-on-ones someone's getting in your group coaching program or in general. Because what you're doing is you're saying the amount of time we spend together is reflective of the results that you get. That's no bueno. You have to learn how to dissociate your time from your client's results. It shouldn't matter how much time someone ever speaks with you. It should be irrelevant. If you had one coaching call a month or per day or every 2 weeks, the clients should still make progress and get better results regardless of how much time they spend with you. So if that's the case, then you figure out for you how much time you want to spend coaching. Maybe it's 2 hours a week, maybe it's 3 hours a day, whatever it is. But it's not about we're going to have 10 one-on-ones together, because now you just have a one-on-one offer that's packaged as a lump sum. Don't do that. So if you have a group program for $3,000 for an outcome, someone's asking you for how many one-on-ones. Well, I mean, what do you ask? Well, I want to make sure, like, cool. Here's how you deal with that. If I had a magic button on your forehead that I could press and instantaneously get you the outcome you want, or we could spend 1 hour on Zoom every single week together to eventually get you there, which would you rather prefer? And everyone's going to say the magic button. And you're like, well, awesome. Well, unfortunately, I'm not a magician, nor do I have that magic button. But what it tells me is you're more interested in the outcome than how we get there. So with that said, and considering my track record of having done this for 1,000 years, is there any reason to believe that my process wouldn't get you closer to where you want to go without relying on one-on-one sessions that are a waste of your time for the whole 12 weeks? Right? So we're dissociating the outcome from your time. And we're getting a prospective client to think about that as well. But let's say that, let's say that's not even a conversation. So you have $3,000 for the coaching program, and then you have your one-on-one, right? Let's say you're offering that, maybe it's on your website, or you can use it as a price anchor. So you get to the end of the call, or you're even talking with the prospect at whatever point, you're like, all right, so here's how this works. It's $1,000 per session. Or you can do it almost pretty much everyone I speak with does, and just join our main coaching program for $3,000. With that, you'll get more access to me, you'll get better results, and you get way more value. Which one works best for you, right? So it's $1,000 for 1 hour of your time or the entire program. What's a no-brainer, right? So what you do is you cannibalize the one-on-one to favor the group. And if someone actually wants a one-off hour of your time, cool, they'll pay you $1,000. And then if you wanted to have that conversation with them and say, hey, listen, like, we've had this 1 hour together. I think we both know no magic is going to happen after a 1 hour consult. Like, do you want to consider taking the next steps? So you can always use that to segue into the main offer afterwards. But like in my case, if someone's like, hey, Yuri, how much is it to work with you one-on-one? I'm like, well, it's $160,000. You get one coaching call a month for 6 months, and I need all the money up front, wired. So like, that is the least attractive offer on the planet. And if someone wants to take me up on it, cool, I'll do it. But I'm like, well, you could do that, but you have to be doing 7 figures already. And like, you got to be a massive action taker. So anyways, if that's not you, what most people do is they just join HBA, which is a fraction of the price. You get access to more of me my entire team, all of our playbooks, and we build and install all this stuff into your business. You get none of that if we do the one-on-one. So what am I doing? I'm essentially positioning the one-on-one in such a way that is so ridiculous that if the right person wanted to call it out and be like, I'll take that, I'm like, cool. But it positions my main coaching program as way more valuable and way more attractive, which quite honestly it is. I don't want to do one-on-one coaching. So if someone wants an hour of my time once a month, that's what they're going to pay because I don't want to do it and I don't need to do it. And that price will only continue to go up and up and up as people take it and as people demand it. So that's kind of my way of thinking about this is if you have one-on-one as an offer, cannibalize it. Like, don't cannibalize your main coaching program. That's going to create better results and more leverage for you. Kill the one-on-one by pricing it to such a level that people will be like, why would I even do that? It can literally be the same price as your program. So if your coaching program's $3K, it's like, well, we could do a one-off session for $3K, or you could join the main coaching program for 12 weeks, get more access to me, the whole thing for the same price. Which works better for you? Why on earth would I take the one session for $3K, right? So that's just one thing to consider as our kind of final pricing mistake is not to cannibalize the main offer that's going to produce better results by thinking one-on-one is more valuable for your clients. And if you are going to offer one-on-one, I would strongly recommend 10x in your prices on that, just so that it's not even a viable option for most people, okay? So there we go. Those are the 7 pricing mistakes that I personally made that I wish I would have known of when I started my coaching business. I share this stuff with you because I've made a lot of mistakes over 20 years in business. And if you can minimize the number of mistakes that you make on my back, then that's great. If you've enjoyed this, remember to hit the subscribe button. I've got hundreds of other videos to help you build a thriving online coaching business. If you're a health practitioner, this is the place to be. I'll see you in the next video. Over the past 20 years, I've helped thousands of health practitioners grow successful online health coaching businesses. But the reality is that building a business online is harder than ever before. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through 9 harsh realities that you need to be aware of if you actually want to succeed in business as a health professional this year.